What's Your Work Fit is sponsored by Hudson Davis. Start your brand's marketing and communications journey today at hudsondaviscommunications.com. I'm Dan Smolin. I built a successful executive career in marketing and communications before becoming a top headhunter and founding my own executive search firm. Now get this, every day, mainstream media runs stories in which old school bosses and thought leaders frame your work and workplace issues in ways that are often divisive and unmeaningful. And that's just crazy. The time has come for you to answer the question, what's your work fit? So that your work and career fit who you are, how you want to live, and what you want your lasting contributions to be. What's your work fit? It answers your questions and tackles the issues that keep you up at night about advancing your career in this time of workplace revolution. So let's get started. Hey, good day, everyone. Dan Smolin here from What's Your Work Fit. It's good to be back. We took a few weeks off to refresh and restore, and we're back for a couple episodes in June. We'll take a couple more weeks, and then we'll be back to more episodes in July. So I hope you will subscribe to us so you don't miss those future episodes. Okay, before we get to our amazing guest, I want to make a pitch here. What's Your Work Fit is driven on the questions that careerists like you are up at night thinking about to make work fit, to make it a part of a day, doing other meaningful things, and not an all-consuming time suck of a day. To drive the show's value, we go out to you, our viewers, with a pitch, which is tell us what questions you have. And if we pick your question, we will send you this embroidered What's Your Work Fit hat. It's our way of saying thanks. But here's the key. You've got to send them in to me. And if we pick it, we will send you a cap. So reach out to me at dansmolin.com. You can also IM me on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Okay. Let's get to it. I am so pleased to introduce you to Josef Katz. He is our guest today. He is somebody who has been a good friend of mine for a long, long time. Josef, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Dan, great to be here. Thanks for having me. And yes, many, many years.
We go back a long time, but it's been a very good and fortuitous friendship. Okay, so before we get into our viewer question today, I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit about the work that you're currently doing, and in particular, your hosting of the PrimeLife Podcast.
Sure thing. So the PrimeLife Podcast is a group effort. I work with some great people on that show. We basically are talking about issues that affect aging adults. So 50 plus as the world ages, and I think the stats are by the year 2030, there'll be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. So we're starting to see a demographic shift. And we talk about all the issues people need to be thinking about. So longevity, what does that mean? Health and wellness, how do you live your best life as you live longer? Financial, make sure people aren't going to outlive their money, and what to do if that might be a possible issue that they need to contend with. Caregiving, sandwich generations, like all those sorts of ideas. So we have a good time. Some of the topics are heavy, but we try to make them light. People are dealing with like parents that are ailing, and how you continue your life in a way that's meaningful.
So that's a great tee up to our viewer question, which was submitted for this episode by James. This kind of background is going to be familiar to you and to me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners. James started his career at an ad agency. So did I. After that, he moved to the corporate side of marketing and then onto running his own marketing consultancy, which he's about to close down, dissolve the company. But James is not ready to retire. He's a Gen Xer. He wants to take this opportunity to do something outside the scope of the work that has defined his career. And so James asks, how can I begin a fourth act career? So, Joseph, let's get him started. How can James begin a fourth act career? What are the steps he needs to do to endeavor that?
Sure. And I think I'm beyond fourth at this point in my career.
Me too.
I think it comes down to, thinking through what it is you want to do and talking to lots of people. I speak to, I don't know, dozens of people every day.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's regarding, the podcast, or maybe regarding marketing or some other aspect of things I'm involved with. But just digging in and exploring, learning, right? Lifelong learning is key to this. If you have an idea, and I have a close friend who I'm now working on a completely random idea with, that he and I, got all excited about. So we're pushing forward. Just do it, right? Like, take that first step. What's the old saying? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step. So just take a step, start learning, start talking.
Okay, that is terrifying to like every A-type out there who wants to be perfect.
There is no perfect. That I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, is there wisdom in starting ugly?
Well, I guess it's helpful for people who don't know me that in my background, I also started in sales, went to an ad agency, went to corporate. The last dozen plus years been in the startup world. So in the startup world, which is really where my brain is for a while, there is no perfect. Ugly is beautiful, right? So just throwing things up there, in the startup world, people talk about, what's the phrase? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So you just got to do things. You got to put the stuff out there, see what's going to resonate with the potential customer, client, and adapt. There's enough people out there that not everyone's going to see everything you do.
Yeah, long dead Voltaire is evergreen. Perfect is the enemy of the good. Well, let's get to a first question. So Ellen asks, Joseph, are there business sectors you think offer good fourth act career opportunities? Now, I would imagine in your podcast, you are looking at a lot of service type businesses, side hustles, things like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think part of that answer to that question comes up with what you're passionate about, right? Like, I know people that just, chase the money, and that's fine. You can go after, if money is all that's going to drive you, then there are lots of businesses that are all about money, and, it's the financial services or some sort of financial product that might be the right place for you. If it's all about passion, then, figure out where that passion lies. For me at the moment, I'm pretty interested in the, let's call it, age tech longevity space, primarily because of the demographic shifts, right? There are trends that are showing that more people will be over 65 sooner than later, and those people will control a large percentage of spending power. So there's opportunities there. What those opportunities are, you have to explore for your own self and figure out what gets you excited.
So let's talk about some of the things that you're seeing in what you call age tech. What are some of the exciting things that are popping up, perhaps as startup companies, that could, I guess, entice somebody who's endeavoring a fourth act career opportunity?
Yeah, I guess we can start with the financial services side of that. A lot of the financial services products and services that were developed over the last dozen years have been primarily focused on the younger generations, right? Saving, accumulating wealth. There are a lot of products, technologies, call them what you want, that are now focused on decumulation of wealth and how to make sure you have the money to live for your full life. I met a company a couple of months ago that's working on epigenetics, which is basically science that helps you understand, like, almost to an exact, not exact, but pretty interesting technology that shows you how long you may live and what.
Oh God.
Yeah, and they're using it in some interesting ways, and there's lots of practical applications down the road. But the science is evolving, right? So if that's an area of interest, then it's I think it's a pretty cool product that they're building. And I'm not doing it justice here, so I apologize if any of those guys are on the phone. Smart applications, smart homes. There's a lot of sensor technologies out there now. And then you mentioned products. There are a lot of physical products out there too. People are building products to help people live more, healthier lives by adapting to their new needs. So there's definitely stuff out there for people who want to dive in.
If you're a guy like me who in his off time watches a lot of Me TV, and the commercials are usually for, um,
Help by falling, I can't get up. Right?
yeah, falling, can't get up, or whatever the brand of mobile phone coverage is. It's designed for 50 plus people, and you're like, well, that's boring. I think you're onto something, because there are a lot of novel products out there that align with the fact that we're all living longer lives, and we're more productive. I mean, my late father was productive into his early 80s. He was working into his early 80s. That's our future.
I mean, working is definitely, it's important, not just for the financial side of things, but there's science that shows that, keeping your brain engaged is going to allow you to continue to function in society longer and then have a better life. Prevent dementia. Yeah, I see my friend Jeff.
Jeffrey, self-driving cars, but you can laugh at that, but that's
they're here.
You get to a certain age, you probably shouldn't be driving. Maybe, I mean, I know people that drove into their 90s and probably shouldn't have. But I mean, self-driving cars are going to empower a lot of people who are otherwise not fully accessible to mobility.
The whole driving conversation is an interesting one, right? If someone has physical or cognitive issues that prevent them from driving safely, then yes, they shouldn't be driving. But if you're in your, like you said, in the 80s or 90s and you can drive safely, and then why not? Why should someone not have that ability?
If I wasn't doing what I am doing now, one of the areas that would interest me now, and I'm 62 years old, as an ongoing thing, is urban farming. I don't live in I don't live in a deep rural community, but the idea to be involved in growing, marketing, and distributing fresh produce and farm goods would be really exciting to me. I know a lot of older people don't have the same access to fresh fruit that they had when they were perhaps younger, because maybe they're living in senior living or whatever, and their meals are being delivered to them and they're not preparing their own. But that to me would be exciting. And I guess if you can eat better longer, you're going to live longer.
Yeah, nutrition is a huge part of aging. There are vertical farms. You can actually put in your apartment or house. I don't know if you've seen them, but that's a thing. Vertical farming.
I want to get to Casey's comment, if you will, and she says, "I don't know what my fourth act will be, but doing it, I want to be engaged with my work and workplace." And I thank you for this, Casey, because this lines up with research that came out this week from Gallup organization about the workplace. And no big surprise, their greatest finding is all around engagement. And depending upon which part of the world you look at, we're either more engaged or less engaged. I think in the United States, our engagement has actually probably slipped a little bit. It was at 33% a couple of years ago during the pandemic. It's now at 31%. But that's not a standalone thing. What they have found is that the more engaged you are is really the best indicator of your success ongoing in life. So to Casey's point, she wants to be engaged. How much does disengagement factor into people of a certain age seeking out fourth act careers? What are your thoughts on that?
I can only talk for myself, but I can tell you that the whole quiet quitting, not being engaged is a real thing. I think passion is important. Having a passion for what you're doing is going to drive the engagement. If you don't care about what you're doing, yeah, you'll do it, you'll get your paycheck, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be a huge success, right? I think most people know that unless they put their heart and soul into something, it's just going to chug along at whatever pace. yeah, it goes back to that earlier point about the passion and, finding what moves you or resonates with you and just doing it, because you can get a job and you can go work for someone else and, press the red button every 3 hours to say you've done your job, but you need that passion. You need to be engaged. You need to find fulfillment in the work. That's why, you mentioned we started with the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I say it to my co-hosts all the time, and that is the highlight of my week every time we get together, or day, depending on how often we're doing it. They're just fun people to work with. We have engaging conversations with interesting people, and so it's fun. And because it's fun, I continue to push forward and find new guests and talk to more people, and it leads to new ideas, and potential opportunities pop up from that.
So one of the things that I think people are looking at in terms of fourth act careers is kind of getting out of corporate America, or the corporate world, if you will, getting out of the co-location, being closer to the other activities in life that we have. But that's not for everybody. I mean, I think some people would just they like being in the co-location. They like the structure of it. They like the traditional nature, if you will, of escaping the home, the home environment and getting into a traditional co-located environment. So to those people who are looking at fourth act careers as saying, you know what, I don't want to get out of this, but I do want to remain useful to a company, perhaps as a senior seasoned element in an organization of perhaps younger people. To people that are in that bucket, if you will, Joseph, what are your thoughts in terms of helping managers and leaders engage them properly so that it's a positive experience?
Yeah, first, I totally understand the idea of not wanting to leave the corporate America, right? It's entrepreneurship is not for everyone, starting a business, etc. There's risk, there's uncertainty. Working at a large company or somewhat large company has its safety nets, right. But it's also a risk. I have friends, as I'm sure you do, who work for the same large company for 15, 20 years, and then one day, boom, they're out of a job.
That was my brother. My brother was in agribusiness. He's been in agribusiness his entire career. He worked for basically one company. He loved it. He had such passion for it. And that company got, the assets got sold to the nearest competitor. Well, they didn't want my brother.
Right.
He was the enemy.
Right. So, there are risks on both sides. It's how you perceive and see those risks. My advice or suggestion, I guess, would be, it comes back to that engagement. Companies that are embracing older adults, and I met a guy who's working on a business only around helping older adults go back into corporate America. And it's the idea is that these people still have a lot of value to add, and there's knowledge, experience that can share with younger generations. Making sure both sides are engaged and want to have that sort of work environment. The leadership is important to be on board and making sure that they believe that, okay, yes, this older adult may not have the same energy, may not be able to do the same exact things they did 30, 40 years ago, but they have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of experience. They can show people the ropes and help them, build the company from that point forward, right? They have this history that you can't replicate. You can't just pass on history of 30, 40 years.
Right. I want to continue on that thought, but first I want to get to this one slide from the research posted yesterday by Gallup. This is, I think this plays into a lot of people who are thinking about fourth act careers, is the element of quiet quitting, which is, 59% globally.
It's a big number.
6 out of every 10 people in the world who work are not engaged. That is a huge number. And so...
Is it fair to say that this is from corporate America?
This is across the board. So Gallup does in-person and phone interviews, and they go globally, and they have statistically significant results. So this is, plus or minus a few percentage points. This is a real, that 59% is a real number. And then the loud quitting, the actively disengaged, that's astounding to me.
I mean,
And
that's the negative side, right? That only 23% of are actually engaged. I mean, that should be the wake up call for the employers.
and in North America, it's at 31%. It had been 33%. And for people that have been with me for the whole ride, I say 66% of the workplace is disengaged. Well, now add 2 percentage points to that. It's that's quite shocking. So
If you extrapolate what that means in terms of salaries and people, it's pretty big numbers.
yeah, I just want to mention this. Bear with me, audience. I want to give you a mind blower number here that came out, and it has to do with the loss in productivity globally. $8.8 trillion US. So 8.8 trillion US dollars lost yearly to disengagement. That's Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, and probably half of another company combined.
It's a lot of money.
That's a wake up call.
Yeah,
That's truly, truly astonishing. Okay, I'm going to get to Stu's question. Probably your distant relative.
Yeah, no, he was on your show a few weeks ago, and we already determined he's not related.
Yeah, right. So Stu's asking, how different from previous act does your work and engagement need to be considered as your next act? And that's a good question. I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but I think that the linchpin to that is really what was missing from the previous acts that you want to get in this fourth act that gets you to better engagement and more satisfaction in what I call a work fit.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not sure how we even define act at this point in the way the world is moving. Things sort of just roll, right? Like you roll from one thing to the next thing. It's not like a formal stop and start many times. But yeah, it's a mindset, in my personal opinion, right? I'm no longer this. This is no longer what I'm doing. I'm doing this. In my mind, I'm still doing what I've done for the last 20 plus years or whatever it's been. I'm just doing it differently, or I'm working with different people in different environments and learning new skills and new tools. So,
our parents' generation, oftentimes their dreams are dashed by the fact that they went into the family business. Either it was a plumbing business, or one of my friends is a lifelong accountant who took over the practice that his father started, and he hated it, and he's since going on to side hustling creative projects just to give him a sense of enjoyment and enrichment. Helena Minsk brings up Martin Seligman, who really talks a lot about engagement and happiness, and she mentions the PERMA model, which is positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. And perhaps that's a good frame for people going into a fourth act career opportunity. Is where does your idea align to this model? I mean, I doubt people are choosing fourth act careers simply on financial considerations alone, perpetuating a family business.
I mean, those are all interesting points, right? Like as you were reading that, I was thinking through what I've said to people, which is, I don't just take a job for the money. I don't just take the job for, the benefits. Like it's got to be more meaningful, right? There needs to be a reason why I'm want to do this, whether it speaks to me from a philosophical standpoint or to making a change in the world in some way. Yeah, there needs to be engagement. There needs to be something that you can get excited about, right? At the end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. You should be excited and happy and enjoy it.
Cindy Rosner. Hey, that's somebody I haven't talked to in a long time. How you doing, Cindy? She's asking, in regard to quiet quitting, what do you think are the top 5 components that comprise that? Well, that's a good question, but I think when suddenly or along the way you lose that leadership and that engagement with your boss primarily, and each day goes by and you don't know what's going to happen next. You feel disengaged when you're taken away from the decision-making process, from leadership opportunities, certainly from seeing what comes next. And if I would think probably one of the biggest disengagements, Cindy, is got to be uh, workplace toxicity from passive aggression to outright, you know, post office brawls.
That would definitely be my top answer. Workplace toxicity, and the not being valued by the boss.
So if you had to look back, and I've known you since we were both working in Midtown Manhattan. What are if you had to think back then, what you thought your career would be? How different is it now?
It's definitely different. I've had one of those ups and downs sort of careers. You have some highs and lows. It wasn't linear like that. I don't think I've to this point had the exact job I thought I would have at any one point in time. But I've enjoyed it, and I've had some really exciting career points. Was part of some really exciting startups. Got to see some really interesting things. Worked with some amazing thought leaders and true leaders. Like there's one person who I would do pretty much anything they asked, because they were one of those kinds of leaders, and you don't get to work with those kinds of people in every job. So I have no regrets, as they say, but it is nothing as you think it would be when you start out, young and fresh and all excited to get to work.
I've known you a long time. I would say that what I think your attribute is, what keeps you going, is giving back. You take a lot of people under your wing, and I think you fashion yourself as a teacher, which is really very noble.
That's interesting you say that. I have a very close friend who has been trying to get me to teach. She's like, "You'd be a great teacher."
I think you would be. It's the noblest profession. Well, let's get to the last comment here, which is from the teacher in my household, Marcia, who's she says, my fourth act is vintage clothing sales and investing, and that was born out of a side hustle, and that's true. I mean, she's working a full-time job. She's learning how to do options trades while figuring out how to run a successful Etsy store at the same time, which will become, full-time endeavors when she retires formally for teaching. And she asks, are others staging fourth act careers like this? And I would say, Marsh, yeah, absolutely. If the structure of traditional work is too much to bear, a lot of people want autonomy, so they're becoming their own entrepreneurs, if you will.
Yeah, I think the pandemic that really highlighted that people wanted autonomy. People wanted to have their work-life balance, right? I'll use some of your words. To do what they want, to do the things they love, to be spending their time where they want and when they want. And so if someone started something, a hobby, and it evolves into a job and a business, that's great. As long as they stay passionate about it and enjoy it, why not?
We have literally run out of time here, but before I get to my final question to you, Josef Katz, I wanted to give you an opportunity to point our viewers and listeners to your social media and to PrimeLife Podcast, so they can hear your podcast, but really connect with you and learn more about you. Where would you point them?
So I'm an easy guy to find. Most places it's just Josef Katz. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, etc. My website is just josefkatz.com. My email address is josefkatz@gmail.com. So pretty easy to find. The PrimeLife Podcast is primelifepodcast.com. There's a link. There should be links to that on wherever you find me as well. And reach out. I'd love to chat with people and talk about this topic or any other thing we've covered today.
And for our audio listeners who aren't looking at show notes, Josef spells his first name with an F, not a PH.
Correct.
Okay, so let's get to it. What's your work fit, Josef? What attribute, condition, experience, place, or state of mind makes work a part of your day doing many meaningful things and not just the day? So what's your work fit?
So it's that old flow thing, right? If I can get into flow where I'm just like totally focused and doing something I love, then that's the ideal day. It's hard, but I love working with people who just give you the space to do your thing. I mean, that's really what it comes down to me with, the people I work with on the podcast, people I've worked with in the past, people I work with on the side. If we all know, like if I can just do my thing, chase my dream, chase my, project, I'm in my zone. Like, if you're going to try to micromanage me or tell me to do this by 3 o'clock, then forget it. It's just not going to work. But yeah, for me, again, like I could say it all, but like if you look at the successes I've had and the projects I worked on and the people I've worked with, they'll tell you that that's kind of, to get the best out of Joseph, you just let Joseph go.
That's wonderful. Hey, thank you so much. Can we get you back on a future show?
You know how to reach me, Dan. Anytime. Happy to chat. Happy to help.
Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm not sure what happened. Here we go.